Good morning, everyone. It's Friday, April 10th, 2009. A little bit of weather is going to be moving through the area today, then kicking up some wind swell for Saturday. Not a pretty start to the weekend, but we are looking at that backing off on Sunday as some southern hemisphere starts to build. If you remember from my recent swell scan reports, that there is some stuff coming up from the southern hemisphere that'll be peaking on Monday the 13th, lasting for a couple days thereafter. So I wanted to show you what the models are doing, dealing with that today, as well as some new developments that are coming up from the southern hemisphere. Still out very much on the long-range model, so it's iffy, but it looks like we could start seeing some stuff later on this month. Also wanted to keep you updated on what's been happening with that Aleutian system that's been on the long-range models that could possibly bring us something around the 14th. Right now that's looking like wind swell, but wanted to show you everything that's happening. This is what's going on with the models right now. Starting out looking at the weather models, we can see low pressure sitting off the coast of Southern California in red, showing a very strong vorticity as it gets into that orange color on this relative vorticity model. So a fairly strong system sitting offshore, but it's not going to really bring too much in the way of rain to Southern California, moving through the region over the next 24 hours. And then if we look towards Sunday time frame, we can see that that low pressure would be moving farther to the east. High pressure would be moving in from the Pacific, but we've got this trough of low pressure sitting up in the Gulf, and that could spell some trouble. It looks like we might see an onshore flow from this trough next week, but as that bears a little bit farther south, that could also kick up some more wind swell. But there is an Aleutian chain system that's also associated with this trough. I want to show you what that looks like on the wave models. This is the current wave analysis model. We can see a fetch that's forming up and around the Aleutians. That's from wind that's been kicked up from the low pressure and troughing that's up in that region right now, and it's going to intensify over the next couple days. If we take a look at the models in time, we can see that high pressure that would be moving into Southern California would be pushing this guy up into the north, not really coming down toward our area, and then dissipating, that Aleutian fetch dissipating up in the Gulf of Alaska. If you look also on the left-hand side of the screen over in the west, there's a Westpac fetch that's looking to form. We'll be keeping an eye on this over the next couple days. And if we look on the models, it looks like that Aleutian chain would be dissipating more. The Westpac could be moving in. Not much change really over the 96 hours, but then when you take a look at it about 120 hours, this is where things get interesting. Looks like that Aleutian fetch associated with that troughing bearing down on the region would kick up enough wind swell off our coast. This would be 14th into the 15th time frame. Then that Westpac fetch still looking to gain some momentum. So we have to keep an eye, see what happens with this. We do know, though, that we're going to be seeing something come up from the southern hemisphere around the 13th. So I want to get to that in just a second. But as far as the wind swell goes, that could have an effect by the time that southern hemisphere comes in on the 14th. As you may recall from previous reports, here a few days ago, there was some activity down and around the Southern Ocean. That was from a fetch that I've been keeping an eye on. Looks like it's going to be definitely bringing us some swell. This is what happened. This is the models on the 3rd, forming that fetch, moving up a little bit more. This will look at the models on the 4th. Then what really happened is once we got it around the 5th, we can see that it did actually strengthen. It was iffy at the time, looking at the models back around the 5th, 6th, but it did actually form. Did get a nice northward progression. And if we take a look at the models back here on the 7th, definitely had a good fetch that had moved more directly toward the north for Southern California. So that's throwing swell our way. This would be arriving around the 13th. Now, it'd be lasting into the 14th, well into the 15th, but with that wind swell that is going to be coming down from the Aleutians, that might actually add something to the mix. It could actually maybe foul up conditions. We'll have to see how that works out. In either case, we do know that that fetch did form nicely. It did have some backup to it. Also, a little bit more of a smaller fetch did form in behind it. So we definitely have swell lasting for a couple days afterwards. And now taking a look ahead, there's a lot of activity that's forming on the long-range models down in the southern hemisphere, and we have to see how this goes over the next few days. Looks like there's going to be another Southern Ocean fetch that would be forming here in the next few days. This is the 96-hour model. And if so, that would probably start bringing stuff in around the 24th. This is about 10 days away from us, way down here near Antarctica. 120-hour models convinced that it seemed to be pushing northward, but that's a long-range simulation. And 144-hour models show possibly another fetch forming behind it south of New Zealand around the Southern Ocean. And both of these wouldn't be moving on the most ideal trajectory, kind of in a northeast, but the size of these is somewhat impressive. In fact, if we go out on a limb here, this is a 180-hour model, very long-range simulation, very tough to tell at this point. But if you can believe this model, it looks like that one fetch would at least get 40-foot seas out of it. But that's way too early to call. This all did work out. Looks like we'd see some southern hemisphere swell in around the 24th through at least the 28th time frame. So once again, that's how things are shaping up right now. Looks like some weather moving through the area today, Friday the 10th. Looks like then we're going to be seeing some wind swell form along the coast for Saturday the 11th. Not looking to be all that pretty. Things should really calm down though on Sunday. Nice weather day, and also looking to have some southern hemisphere start to build. But the southern hemi really won't be filling in that much until Monday. That's the peak day of that first southern hemisphere event. Looks like then we could see some wind swell come into the mix on Tuesday the 14th. Right now, not calling that to be all that bad. Looks like weather will hold, although we'll probably get an onshore flow from that troughing, but we should still see a fairly moderate mix of both southwest ground swell, northwest wind swell then. And then it looks like we might see some southern hemisphere swell coming around the 24th to the 27th time frame, but that's all based on extreme long-range models. We've got to keep an eye on it and see how that develops over the next few days. If you want to get the latest ETAs on the swell, the wind, weather, tide, more, you can always check out my SoCal Surf Report at wetsand.com.